Which character from Itihasa is most misinterpreted?
Karna portrays Karna as the victim of consequences. No, he was a victim of his own choices.
Yes. When we talk about Krishna, it's Radha who is spoken a lot, but very few people know about Rukmini.
So the whole power dynamics of India changed because of this one step of Rukmini marrying Krishna, choosing the partner that young girls should learn from Rukmini.
Girls, please listen to this and choose wisely.
Draupadi is hero of the Dyuta incident. She is not the victim. There's no Agni Pravesha in Markandeya's Ramopakhyanā because that's when the world in the sense the gods get angry with Rama. The patriarchy that people hating, right, is that of Jarasandha, not of Rama or Pandavas. Not recognizing your wife is not something to be proud of. And what is the importance of wife? Ardha bharya manushyasya bharya sreshta tamasakha.
Shamatha Sai Swaroopa Garu.
Shamatha Andi.
Wonderful talking to you. All the insights you're sharing are so deep and there is so much to learn. So, would want to talk to you about the all your writings around women from ancient India, right? How strong they were, their leadership skills, Abhaya, Avishi. So let's want to know more about them. So let's begin with Abhaya. What is that young women today should learn from Abhaya?
Shamatha, back to you and Srimatre Namaha. Lovely to interact with you and lovely to know about this wonderful organization. So it's a privilege to be in this podcast. So yes, wonderful to be here, Sandhya Garu. So about your question about Abhaya, I will always have a special love for Abhaya of all my books because that's where the journey started. About, looking at Narakasura Vadha episode of Bhagavatam from a feminine lens. So also this Narakasura Vadha episode itself has many perspectives to it. The most popular of which is the Bhagavatam. We hear about Krishna and Satyabhama going and fighting Narakasura. Now, there are southern versions which says Satyabhama killed him, and the other versions which says Satyabhama engaged him, but Krishna recovered and killed him with the Sudarshana Chakra. And then there is this version of Shaktas, where Narakasura is more known as Bhuma, as the son of Bhumi, and he's a Shakta. He's a worshipper of Shakti, of Kamakhya. Yes, but somewhere he just got waylaid in his sadhana and he started looking at the mother in a wrong way. So he wanted to marry the goddess to become the overlord of this universe. And that's when she puts a test to, construct steps or something, and he fails and something happens and, Devi kills him. So at the end of the day, it's Devi who killed Bhuma. And now it was exciting too. And I was also parallelly thinking about Krishna rescuing these women who Narakasura had captured and imprisoned. And now with the Shakta lens coming in, now I could understand why so many women were involved. Right? Because a yogini is a very important aspect of Shakta worship, of that intense Shakta worship, right? So now, because otherwise it's like nobody captured so many women. They might have, taken away some beautiful woman or, one of the most beautiful princesses because they want a... But who will capture so many women and imprison them? And, that never... went to now, looking at Narakasura as a Shakta who has gone the wrong way, has given that kind of where, power-hungry zealots, if they get hold of a religion, how they can subvert a religion, right? And somewhere, unfortunately, Shakta tantric worship has been misunderstood so badly. Right. And now, I mean, we are speaking, I don't know whether it's the right platform to say this. The whole, ordeal that Bangladesh is undergoing and Bengal is undergoing, somewhere I feel it's because the Shaktism took a, it's not being practiced as it should be. Somewhere it's too sophisticated, somewhere it's too, the intensity, the energy intensity that the land needs is not there. Uh, so I was intrigued by the Shakta lens of this whole episode, which is why and also I had to place it in the Mahabharata somewhere because Krishna is integral part of this story, and Krishna himself is considered equal to Shakti in many sources, right? And Devi Bhagavata says that, and so that's also intriguing. So you may find a couple of conversations that Krishna has with his inner Shakti, in the book. So we just find them that Krishna is one side and the Devi is other side, and somewhere we also have this belief of Sri Ramo Lalitambika, Sri Krishna Shyamalatmika. So Rama is the masculine side of Lalita because he's a king, she's a queen. There is this one. Sri Krishna Shyamalatmika. Shyamala is Mantrini. Right, the intellectual side of it. When the intellectual side is needed to wage a war against Adharma, that warrior side of intellect is Shyamala as well as Krishna. We know him from the Mahabharata. We know him as the intellectual support for Pandavas, right? The same way Shyamala is the Mantrini. So Krishna is very integral, would say, part of this story of Narakasura Vadha. And, it was just very, I was so excited to reconcile these three perspectives of, Bhuma, Krishna, and I introduced my heroine Abhaya, which I thought I think that's the first book I wrote. So Abhaya is me or what I want to be. I mean, I cannot fight like Abhaya. So she's if something can define her, it's, I think, Jignasa, it's curiosity. She is not somebody who sits at home. She goes with, she's a princess of a very small kingdom, so she wants to know everything about what's happening with the neighbors. Why is this kingdom hostile to us? Why is that kingdom friendly with us? So all the whole dynamics that lead to the power struggle at Hastinapura, at Indraprastha, and how are the small kingdoms, behaving in this way, and how their destinies are being rewritten because this power struggle is going on, the power consolidation is going on by the Pandavas, the Rajasuya, and then there is this Bhuma, who doesn't have the army to, conduct this kind of Rajasuya. But, he is using religion, subvert, to get control over Aryavarta, over Bharatavarsha. And Abhaya happens to kind of sense that something is wrong. And she goes as an active participant, not as a helpless, some helpless woman who's kidnapped and imprisoned. But she goes to investigates and gets caught, and Krishna comes to rescue. And so that's Abhaya. And if a young reader, wants to, I don't want to say you should learn this from Abhaya, but I would like to say be as curious and be committed to Dharma, and great things happens.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Abhaya was very aware, alert, right? Not very distant from what's happening in her surroundings.
Not at all. So that's what, I don't think women should be distant. They should get more involved.
Wonderful, wonderful, Sai Swaroopa. Now, definitely you can talk about all that which is not spoken, right? Which our essential scriptures, the essence which it talks about. So there is no doubt in this platform you can definitely talk and throw some light on those areas. Thank you. So the other characters, right, like Mauri, right? Again, the emotional conflicts that she goes through and how she derives strength from understanding Krishna. Throw some light on her.
So this is one of the lesser known stories. The readers can see it as a sequel to Abhaya, though it can be read as a standalone also. So I was intrigued with Mauri because I knew that there is a story in Skanda Purana where Pandavas are thinking about who could be a good bride for Ghatotkacha. It cannot be, a normal princess because she has to get used to this Rakshasa, customs. And when I say Rakshasa customs, it's not just people may misunderstand them to be some, tribal, this one. But uh, the Rakshasas in the, in their non-cannibalistic side of it, they were protecting travelers. So that is
Okay.
so. That's how I introduced Ghatotkacha there. As somebody who protects these caravans traveling from far off places, and their source of revenue is that they don't have to hunt and kill and kill and survive kind of. Because Hidimba, who's mother of Ghatotkacha, is the leader of the clan now because her brother is killed by Bhima and Bhima has his own life. So he lives with Hidimba. Ghatotkacha is born, and till Ghatotkacha comes of age and leads the tribe, she has to maintain. So she's the matriarch there in the Rakshasa clan. And of course, coming to the story, so in the Skanda Purana, they decide, Krishna suggests them that as a bride to Ghatotkacha, there is this daughter of Murasura. And I had killed Mura in my war with Bhuma. So Mura is the commander of Bhuma, and he had somehow he had a huge role in Abhaya. And he just took his own trajectory. So Bhagavata describes Mura as a fearsome three-headed king, warrior, and a lot of time is, Krishna takes a lot of effort to overcome Mura. Right? And so somehow Mura became a very important character in Abhaya, and I couldn't leave his daughter just, there. I just felt she had to have her own trajectory. So I think it's natural to hate the man who killed your father. So she hates Krishna. And then her destiny makes her meet Ghatotkacha. And surprise, Ghatotkacha is related to a family who worships Krishna, and her conflicts there, right? And then even her getting drawn into greater conflicts. So that's where the story. Now, then she falls in love with Ghatotkacha. Now, does, does she love Ghatotkacha enough to accept Krishna, or does she have the knowledge or the adhikara from, traditional lens? Will she get that to understand Krishna is what is the story about.
How beautiful, right? So there's a larger perspective of we only know so much what we understand from our few five senses, but there is a lot behind, and how you have to reconcile as a person, reflect.
Basically, the greater dharma versus self, what self thinks is dharma, right?
Beautiful. Rukmini, my favorite character. So when we talk about Krishna, often it's Radha who is spoken a lot, but very few people know about Rukmini. So can you talk about Rukmini more and about...
I'm actually surprised that enough people don't know about Rukmini because anybody who chants the Vishnu Sahasranama starts, it doesn't start, but there's a shloka before the Sahasranama starts, Chandrananam Chaturbahum, Shri Vatsankita Vakshasam, Rukminim Satyabhamabhyam, Sahitam Krishnamashraye, and then we go to the Sahasranama, right? So it has always been Rukmini Satyabhama from the traditional perspective, the oral trade. So you would have seen Tanjore paintings of Krishna with Rukmini and Satyabhama, right? That's and I think there's this beautiful temple in Malleshwaram, Venugopala. There's Rukmini and Satyabhama, the historical temple. Now, Radha came from a sampradaya, from a Gaudiya sampradaya, and she occupies a different plane of existence. So, as the Ananda of Krishna, she defines the bliss of Krishna, Ahladini. So, that's when we talk about Krishna Radha, it's in that spiritual plane. And Rukmini is the avatar of Lakshmi, while Satyabhama is the avatar of Bhudevi, right? That way Rukmini forms the Shakti of Krishna as well. Though it's impossible to understand Krishna totally. I say this after writing 4 books about women connected very closely to Krishna.
Thank you. That was my next question, actually. So often people say that Krishna, Vishnumurti, when he has come in Krishna Avatara, Lakshmi, Goddess Lakshmi has come as Rukmini. So thank you for answering that question and bringing clarity there. So what are the qualities of Rukmini that, women of today should look to?
So firstly, there is a misunderstanding about Rukmini which I want to first clear. Not just about Rukmini, there is a misunderstanding of the concept of bhakti itself. So we know Rukmini as a embodiment of bhakti from the more popular story of Tulabharam. Right? So there's Satyabhama who thinks that she is the favorite wife of Krishna, and she suddenly sees Krishna favoring Rukmini, and she wants to do this vrata where she donates Krishna to Narada, and now she has to give wealth that is equivalent to Krishna's weight to Narada to claim Krishna back. And she thinks she has enough, but she realizes that Krishna is more than whatever that human weight is. And that's where Rukmini comes into the picture, and Rukmini can weigh Krishna with her Tulasi Dala, from her puja that she does. So that's I know in a spiritual plane of understanding, this is a great story, right? And somehow Rukmini got attached we know her just from this story, right? And so the understanding of people about Rukmini is some docile woman who does puja, who just does puja and is happy even if Krishna is neglecting her and, not spending enough time with her. And so now bring Mahabharata into the picture and the whole thing changes. Now Rukmini we know her as the princess of Vidarbha. And her father is not that strong, but her brother is very ambitious. Now he wants to get into the good books of this emperor called Jarasandha. And Jarasandha is also another power-hungry monarch So in northern India, 3 kingdoms held the sway. As long as 2 did not unite against the one, things were fine. So there were Kurus, there were Panchalas, then there was Magadha, where Jarasandha. Now, the way Jarasandha tries to dominate others, he is a powerful monarch. He knows that he can't go on an open war with Drupada or Bhishma. So, and Drupada and Bhishma also have their own differences, right? They won't partner. But if he declares an open war with Bhishma, there's more chances that Drupada will side with Bhishma, not with him, right? And to unite, he doesn't want this kind of an open war. But he wants to have the rest of the Bharatavarsha aligned with him. How? Through marital alliances. He poses as some Pelli Pedda, they call, right? The matchmaker, the very patriarchal in the good sense, matchmaker, who is seen as somebody, he united 2 families like this. So Jarasandha does a lot of politics with marital, marriage as his weapon. And one such marriage, he thought, was with Rukmini's princess of Vidarbha, with Shishupala, who is the prince of Chedi. And that's where there is a break to his, his whole movement, because Rukmini is in love with Krishna. And this princess, this single-handedly, forget the Lakshmi and Avatara part, single-handedly she has put an end to this kind of, underhanded domination of Jarasandha. The moment she chose Krishna and engineered her, abduction by Krishna. Now Vidarbha, doesn't become a very strong ally of how much ever Rukmi hates Rukma, who is the brother of Rukmini. How much ever he hates Krishna, he can't go to an open war with his brother-in-law. So he's useless to Jarasandha. So that way Jarasandha lost an ally, right? And because of this, there are other princesses who got inspired. There is Mitravinda of Avanti, that's Madhya Pradesh, right? She also loves Krishna. And there is, then, with two princesses of, these Vidarbha is a large kingdom. It may not be as big as Panchalas and Kurus, but it's a sizable kingdom. So is Avanti, and each of them have one Akshauhini of army. So that's very important for the Panchala has an Akshauhini. So that size of army is really, really important, for people who play these politics for. So once you break that political, mission, right? You cripple that man. So Rukmini, in a way, single-handedly crippled Jarasandha. And look at the way the story turns. Pandavas become powerful. They marry Draupadi. They become, the new power center. And there are these other princesses who are marrying Krishna or somebody else who not just necessarily somebody who Jarasandha chooses for them, right? So the whole power dynamics of India changed because of this one step of Rukmini marrying Krishna, right? And it's done with that awareness that I don't want to side with people who are doing Adharma. Krishna is the picture of Dharma. That's the consciousness with which she chose her husband. And I mean, you've been asking what young girls can look at, but choosing the partner, right? The thought process behind choosing the partner is something that young girls should learn from Rukmini, which is where, even the abduction story becomes a very delightful tale.
Right. Girls, please listen to this and choose wisely. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this. So now my favorite character, Draupadi. So I think if there is anybody who is largely misunderstood is this character, right? And
Because she shares her name with Krishna. It's difficult to understand her.
so please throw some light on, how, brave and intelligent and, she was always sticking to Dharma.
So Draupadi, I mean, a thesis can be written about her and still fall short of doing justice to her. Because I think she was, again, best platonic partner of Krishna, right? The Krishna's mission of Dharma Samsthapana was possible because, not just because he had Rukmini and, great wives by his side, but he had a great friend in Draupadi. Right? And their friendship has to be celebrated more. It doesn't get celebrated enough. Right? And so Draupadi is the princess of Panchala. So we talked about these three kingdoms being powerful. Now her marriage is not a small affair. And Mahabharata says, she's born out of the yajna that Drupada did to get children. One son he wanted to kill Drona because he was insulted by Drona. And but in being defeated by Drona through Arjuna, he could spot the talent in Arjuna. And he wanted a daughter who will become Arjuna's wife. So in a way, he's being fair here, not directing his anger towards Arjuna. But again, dominating Arjuna. I mean, he's the favorite disciple of his enemy Drona. Right? But now, with Arjuna as his son-in-law, he will again dominate Drona. Drupada is a strategist. I mean, one has to learn from him. Now, by the time Draupadi's Swayamvara is announced, there is a small glitch. Pandavas are believed to be dead in the Laksha Gruha incident. There's a Laksha palace that they were residing, and they have actually escaped. Everybody knows that. But, at that time, they were thought to be dead. Now, Now, Drupada wants somebody as good as Arjuna. I mean, he's dead, unfortunate. Now, who is as good as Arjuna? Somebody who can show his prowess on Dhanurvedya. And that's where again Arjuna comes in disguise. Then this, he wins the Swayamvara, and Pandavas marry Draupadi. That's one of the most unique incidents of 5 people marrying a woman, right? And we get this introduction, the clue that something of this magnitude is going to happen from Vyasa himself, who talks about the story of Sachi, who he says is Shri, Swargashri. So, and the 5 Indras, right? 5 Indras who are cursed to become men, and because they fail to recognize Shiva. And it's not, Shiva is Dharma himself again. So they have come to the earth to as men to live Dharma and realize Shiva through that. Right? So the 5 Indras, she becomes the common wife of the 5 Indras as 5 Pandavas. Right? And so her job is to keep the Pandavas united. Now, what the great job that Kunti has done as a mother, she has to continue as a wife. And she does that splendidly. And the greatest test of it we see is in the Dyuta. And Draupadi is hero of the Dyuta incident. She is not the victim, right? I use the word hero, not even heroine or Shiro or anything. She is the hero because she is the one who changes the direction of the story, the direction of the events. So now what do we know about Dyuta incident? There's a game of dice. Kauravas have invited Pandavas, and Duryodhana challenges Yudhishthira to the game of dice. Yudhishthira tries counseling ki nothing good can come out of this game, but then Rajadharma, he cannot, he cannot say no to the challenge to a game of dice. And that's where once you start playing, you don't know where to stop. That's the power of, that's where people have this very low opinion of Yudhishthira, that he wagered his wife. Where Draupadi stands apart is she didn't understand Yudhishthira the same way. Right? And she's such an intellectual powerhouse that she has the right question that can challenge the whole thing. She comes to when she's dragged into the Sabha in the most, gruesome manner, and, a lot of ugly incidents happen there. But once she talks, right, she brings this point of, I know that Kauravas are not as valiant as my husbands, which is why they resorted to this game. Right? You are not confident of winning against them in the battlefield, which is why, so that you can do your trickery and win over my husbands. And because Yudhishthira lost himself before, he lost me, he doesn't have the power to wager me. So I'm a free woman. And the Chiraharana incident, right? It Vidura brings a very important point there. Such a shameful incident has happened in your court. He addresses King Dhritarashtra there. And if there is a papa it's a sinful incident. But you know what? Dushasana gets only 25% of that sin. Rest of us who did nothing get the next 25% of the sin. But the 50% of the sin will go to you, Dhritarashtra, because you could have stopped it, you didn't. As the king, you let this incident happen. And I would like to say, I don't know whether it's, it's the proper platform, but the pogrom that's happening in Bangladesh, right? The powers that are people who are rioting on the roads may get only 25% of that sin, but the bulk of the sin will go to the man on the helm and maybe some other powers who are, puppeteering him. Right? And that's not a sin that will easily get washed away. We are already seeing the degeneration of the West, right? And let's see what, how it plays out. But yes, men in power, the people in power, right, have to be really, really conscious about what is being played out under their rule. That's what Vidura brings in, and that makes Dhritarashtra really scared. So now he knows that he will be held responsible. He is the king. Duryodhana is not the king. Shakuni is not the king. Dushasana is not the king. He is the king. And he has let these three men ruin everything. So in in a political language, the ordeal of Draupadi, is a Kaurava suicide, right? It's a political suicide that the Kauravas committed. Because there's no coming back from there. It's like the line of morality, not just morality, a lot has been crossed. You cannot repair that. You can repair, you tried to murder Bhima by poisoning him, but maybe you can ask for forgiveness or do something back and repair. That can be repaired, but assaulting Draupadi cannot be. It's an irreparable thing, right? So Dhritarashtra is worried. He asks, Draupadi, you are my most favorite daughter-in-law. Kuruvamsha has done some punya. That's why, you came as a daughter-in-law, as whatever. Something. This is a long ode to Draupadi. And then he says, please ask for something. Let me do something for you so that, this whole insult is kind of forgotten or compensated for. And the first thing Draupadi asks is freedom of Yudhishthira. He's still, your sons think that he's their slave. So, but foremost, free Yudhishthira. And Dhritarashtra says, okay, that's granted, but ask for something more. Then she says, free my other 4 husbands and their weapons. Okay, granted, but ask for something else. He says, I don't have to ask for anything else now. Because whatever is needed by me, my husbands will take care of it. They are free. Their weapons are with them. And that's when Dhritarashtra totally knows that she is openly challenging. So just look at the way that, being dragged into the Sabha by hair is how her entry started. And now she is at the verge of starting a war which Dhritarashtra knows he will lose. Because Pandavas they have done Digvijayas. Each brother has gone in one direction and has, won over countless number of kings, and their battle experience is superior. And Duryodhana has not fought a real battle till then, right? He's fought with Drupada and lost badly as a boy. Till then, there is no real battle experience of Duryodhana. And God knows how these old people will, whether they'll fight with their full heart in or out, we don't know. But so, Dhritarashtra says, let's forget this game of dice has happened at all. You just take back what belonged to you, go home, live your life. So she overturned the whole incident. She's a game changer there. And of course, there's a second game of dice, and they have to go to Vanavasa. And Vanaparva is another beautiful chapter that sheds light on Draupadi's intellectual side. So the discussions she holds with Yudhishthira, the revenge versus forgiveness. That's a great debate. The action versus inaction. So she is Yudhishthira's equal in intellect. Right? That's something which...
Really, really a lot to learn from her. So the Dharma gave her so much of strength, staying by its side. So in times of so much of wrong happening, she could still gather her strength, and she was brave in questioning right.
Duryodhana tells her something, that she will be free to go either if she says that I am not a wife of these 5 brothers, and choose someone else in the Sabha, or if any of Yudhishthira's brothers can say that to him, right? Neither happens. So she has her head on her shoulders, totally.
Wonderful. Wow. Oh, so I don't know what is being taught in political science as a topic in universities. This Itihasa itself has so much to teach. Oh, wow.
Mahabharata is actually, I was discussing about Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha with Pavanji. I think Mahabharata itself is great guru who talks about Raja Dharma without losing its focus on moksha. That's the highest version of political science, that, the most exalted version of political science we can learn from Mahabharata.
So this one has answered all of my questions around, who is that character from our ancient history who is totally misunderstood, and you have thrown beautiful light on it, and hope this will give clarity to people when they read and they look at Draupadi now.
Yes, because the misunderstandings about Draupadi are of two varieties. One, she was this vengeful woman who always wanted her enemies dead, and talks about, doesn't plait her hair till Dushasana's blood is smeared upon it. Of course, I mean, that anger may be there, but that doesn't define her. And the other version of her is this victim of patriarchy kind of argument, which she is not. She was never, she never allowed herself to be victimized. Right, and the greatest thing to Draupadi is, we can realize in the Vanaparva when Markandeya visits the Pandavas. There, actually, Jayadratha has tried to abduct Draupadi, and Pandavas overpower him. But Yudhishthira is disturbed by this incident because somebody in the ashrama, they live, some cook or somebody is, has spoken in a very inappropriate way about Draupadi because she was kidnapped by Jayadratha. So Yudhishthira scolds that woman, but somewhere it's hurting him inside, which is why he talks about it to Markandeya. And Markandeya puts things in perspective by narrating two stories, Ramopakhyana about Rama, where he stops the story when it comes to Rama telling Sita that I cannot accept you, because there's no Agni Pravesha in Markandeya's Ramopakhyana, because that's when the world in the sense the gods get angry with Rama, right? And Markandeya ends the story here saying that talking ill about Draupadi is as foolish as talking ill about Sita.
Okay.
Then the narration veers towards Savitri, because Yudhishthira feels like Draupadi doesn't deserve this, and why is she bearing with this? Then Markandeya talks about Savitri and how Savitri saved her husband, right? And so here we see the contrast, right? Here Sita was in danger, and Rama was the valiant one who rose up, and here Satyavan was in danger. Savitri was the one who stood up. And in Mahabharata, both happened. Jayadratha tried to abduct Draupadi, and Pandavas had to rise to the occasion. And Pandavas were in trouble in the Dyuta Sabha. And Draupadi protected them like Savitri. She saved them from slavery, from Dasatva. Right? That's where Markandeya ends the story. She has been a Savitri and you have been a Rama. So just continue being that. Don't listen to others and just get disturbed by it.
Wonderful story again. Our ancient rishis and munis, how they were so important, right? And they were the guiding forces.
They were guiding forces.
The Guru Parampara, right? It emphasizes on that again.
In a way, Mahabharata is the, bridge between so many rishis and the reader. You get to hear Markandeya, you get to hear Maitreya, you get to hear a score of rishis.
Wonderful. So how do you address the criticisms of patriarchy? Often directed at our ancient texts, right?
I would say that, there is a power thirst which is very, characteristic of a human. Whoever, its ambition is the characteristic of human. Sometimes it can cross a line, right? Like Jarasandha, the patriarchy that people are hating, right, is that of Jarasandha, not of Rama or Pandavas. Right? It's using woman as a tool to. That is only Jarasandha did it. Neither the Pandavas nor Rama nor Krishna did that.
Right.
So I think so. It's very important to know these stories in detail, the Itihasa in detail, to understand what was the kind of patriarchy that was followed. Because Other side is like this feminism, unfortunately, has imported its Western version. So it's seeking to juxtapose the Abrahamic patriarchy. Right? There it is, the man has unquestioned power. It's not like that with the Hindu structure. Hindu structure, the wife has to put the Achamaniya water also for the, ritual to, move forward. She has to light the fire of the yajna to, for the yajna to move forward. And so I was pointing at, I teach Telugu also, and we were discussing Vamana Avatara when Bali Chakravarti makes this decision to give the 3 paces of earth to Vamana. Vindhyavali, his wife, comes with the water. Unless she pours the water, the dana is not complete. That's where. So there is that equal importance to wife. And Mahabharata has a beautiful shloka from Shakuntala to Dushyanta. So she's counseling him when he is refusing to recognize her. She counsels him. If not recognizing your wife is not something to be proud of. And what is the importance of wife? Ardha bharya manushyasya bharya sreshta tamasakha. Bharya moolam trivargasya bharya mitram arishyataam. So wife, he says, is half of a man. You are incomplete without your wife. And the wife is who brings the trivargas to you. And she's a natural partner in the moksha, right? And she's the best friend that you have. I mean, so just look at it. If there are couple and there is another best friend than your husband, than your wife, then it means that the marriage has something, something to worry about. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
Right? I know, starting point, it cannot be that, but the goal of a marriage should be where your spouse is your best friend. Right? There is so much to learn.
Definitely. And who else? Our Adi Kutumba, Shiva, Parvati themselves is a big example to look at.
Beautiful, beautiful example. Ardhanarishwara concept comes from the family of Shiva.
Today's women, right? Very confused they are. They don't know whether they are powerful. They don't know whether they can do something for themselves. There are lots of narratives around, as you know. So how can ancient feminine values, be adapted without losing its essence?
I think it's about firstly identifying those values, because firstly I disagree with the understanding that today's women are confused. It's mostly today's world is confused, and women are also unfortunately a part of it, because there's at one point of time there was no knowledge, and today there's too much of knowledge that is not right. That's what is pulling everyone in all directions. But I would say how to imbibe the qualities of the ancient Indian feminine is by first identifying what it stood for, right? Curiosity, that's jignyasa, to know, what is right, what is wrong, the viveka, right? That's what I think Abhaya portrayed for me. Is just don't stay disconnected. Try to know what is happening around you. Be aware of what is happening around you and have the focus on dharma again. So that gives courage. Now, what was who stood by Draupadi during the toughest moment? It's dharma. And it's dharma that binds Krishna to her, So I think so. Knowing dharma, but is a very tricky job. That's a journey to complete, and that not just women, even men have to undergo that journey of discovering dharma. And dharma is not something, once you discover, it doesn't remain static, it will go to the higher position. Now you have to again do trek up to the realize the higher dharma, then the higher dharma, the ultimate dharma, right?
I have another question, but I don't know, maybe you're shooting it, but I wanted to ask, probably I'll ask towards the end, okay? Sure. So now that we have spoken so much, beautiful storytelling and wonderful answers, so it's time for some rapid fire.
Okay.
Yeah, so the questions will shoot and answer has to be real quick.
Oh my God, I am mad at this.
So, are you ready for it?
Let's go.
Wonderful. Yeah, so here's the first question. Your favorite character from your own books? Abhaya, Mauri, Draupadi, Avishi, Rukmini.
Krishna.
Wonderful answers. Wow. That was fast. So, most intriguing era to live in if given a choice? Vedic, Mauryan, or Gupta?
I would choose Vedic because there's a lot of knowledge to be explored and experienced.
Again, the first word that comes to mind when you hear Krishna.
Love.
Love. Wow. Nice. Favorite festival and why?
Many favorite festivals.
One, if you get to choose one.
Navaratri.
Navaratri.
That's a great time to connect with the inner Shakti.
Wonderful. Wow. And I know it's difficult, but if you want to describe Draupadi in one word,
Courage. Dharma. Dharma, I think.
Dharma. Dharma. Wow. Now, women from ancient India who inspire you the most? Gargi, Maitreyi,
Both.
Avishi.
Vishpala. I think all of them. Yes.
So, one thing you would ask Krishna if you met him today?
I would just say, there's nothing to speak or ask. It's so.
Saying Krishna itself is.
Exactly. That's the end of all questions, right?
Yeah. Wonderful. So, yeah. Which of your books would you want to see made into a movie?
I'll want Rukmini. Exactly, because it brought out, I feel the book brought out a lot of under discussed aspects of Mahabharata. It tilts the view on the Mahabharata. Rukmini is not exactly an outsider, but also not a total insider. But the ringside view of Mahabharata is got from, and the not exactly subaltern, but all the participating agencies in the Mahabharata get that platform. If Rukmini is made into a movie, it will be a totally unique Mahabharata.
Wonderful. Very great answer again. So, a story from Indian history you wish more people knew.
A lot of stories are there. I would wish for Indian history, you mean the Itihasa included? Then I would say Savitri is one of the most again, a misunderstood character, equal to, the misunderstanding is equal to Draupadi, because use the phrase Sati Savitri and just see the understanding that people have around that. It's about, very docile, very submissive. That's not Savitri. It may be Satyavan, I don't know. But it's not Savitri at all.
So, what's next? Fiction, non-fiction, or something entirely?
Both non-fiction, I'm writing a series of books for writers. And also I would love to do something on parenting. My daughter keeps intriguing me with a lot of her own kind of understanding, and it's joy as well as challenge. So something, if I can, write about parenting, but there's time for that. But the fiction side, I've submitted this manuscript on Devi Sharanyu, or Sanya Devi, who is the wife of Surya. She is the mother of Manu. In a way, she is the mother of humanity, Manavas. Right, and we don't know much about this divine, play that went on before life started on Earth. So readers will know about this intriguing goddess who is the mother of humanity, who I call as the mother of humanity.
On Twitter, which character from Itihasa is most misinterpreted?
Karna.
Okay. Karna.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of, I think Karna is understood only from an emotional plane and not from a intellectual or a ethical plane. So somewhere emotions become everything to people while that's how poets have found him. I mean, it's not Twitter or today's generation. The misunderstanding started happening, should be somewhere in the 16th or 17th century itself. The writings started being a little... only difference is that the ancient writings on Karna, be it Bhasas, that's the 4th century or 1st century, I guess, Karna Bharam. And then Tikkanna Somayaji's part of the Andhra Mahabharatam, right? There are places where Tikkanna does not portray Karna as a hero, but there are places where you can sense the sympathy which Vyasa did not have. Right?
Okay.
In a place where Krishna says it's not Arjuna who killed Karna, but 6 things, all the shapas that came and, So that in a way, in an emotional pain, it's just portrays Karna as the victim of consequences. No, he was a victim of his own choices.
Yes.
Right? Whatever curse he got, it was his choice to shoot arrow blindly and kill a cow. The cow which was, very loved by a Brahmana. So he's bound to curse you. He won't say thank you for killing my cow, right?
He never stood by the side of Dharma.
Yes, he never. In fact, there are times I feel bad for Duryodhana because he was so blindsided by Karna to not listen to the whole advice system, the support system. I don't think anybody would have the support system that Duryodhana had. You have a grandfather, you have 2 gurus, you have a friend like Ashwathama who never gave a wrong advice. Ashwathama is always about talking what is right and what is wrong. Somewhere he lost it and did that midnight massacre. That's a different story. But, so you have Gandhari for a mother, and even Shakuni did not give a wrong advice. So he was just being a loyal mama. That's all. My cousin, so he should get his. So it's Karna who has always been, misleading him that he's meant for something beyond him.
Wonderful. Thank you. And that brings us into the rapid fire. And it was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shamatha. What is Sanatana Dharma according to you?
Sanatana Dharma. So firstly, I think we should... we should not qualify, we should not use the word Sanatana as a qualifier. Dharma is Sanatana. Eternal. Dharma is eternal. Right? And the most beautiful understanding of Dharma is got from its own etymology. Dharayeti iti Dharma. Right? Dharma is what sustains. So it's not exactly a rule. It's not exactly a protocol. It is not the definition of morality, immorality. It's whatever that sustains those who follow it. That is Dharma. And K.M. Munshiji in his Krishnavatara has this beautiful understanding of Dharma. It is what Dharma is what helps a human being to weld his thought, word and deed, the Trikaranas, so strongly that he would realize he is Vasudeva. So Dharma is what helps you in action connect with divinity. I think that I take that understanding of Dharma as my guiding wisdom.
Beautiful. Shri Matre Namaha.
Shri Matre Namaha. Thank you. Thank you so much.